First course, Caesar, fries, followed by second course holding, filet, fifth rare, halibut.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing podcast, Late Night with Chefs. Truffle Boy reporting for duty here. Doug is currently on the line. Maybe he'll step back when he's done with that. But we have an amazing guest chef, Mark Vorhees. Wow, it is amazing that we got you on the pod. Appreciate the short notice. Me and Mark go back to culinary school, and he actually gifted me my first real chef knife. It was a beautiful Shun 8-inch, and I still have it today, and I still make sure to have that one as the sharpest knife, just for any, things in that, but I always bring it out for the nice showstopper. So, Mark, I'm super excited to have you on the pod. How are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. I'm here in Chicago. Are you still in the city, or where are you?
I'm in Chicago now. Actually, I have a place in Arizona, but right now I'm here in Chicago, outside of Chicago.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, Mark, we're super excited to have you on the pod. We kind of want to see where your culinary journey began. I know you definitely have a very interesting story, and for us young culinarians there, if you could start us off, what was the culinary scene like? What were the restaurants like? What did people do back, when you were 21, 25, in the city of Chicago?
Well, I wasn't in Chicago then. I was in Toledo. So the coolest place in Toledo, where I actually ended up working as a wine steward slash chef de partie, making cheese plates, which is kind of like my first and only real culinary job. And so wine bars weren't really a thing back in the 70s, especially, in the Midwest. And but they had 200 wines and a lot of great California wines that really ended up getting discovered like a year or two later. And my job was to drink with the customers. So paid like shit. Got to drink 3 bottles of wine a night, and learned how to properly open a bottle of wine. I learned how to make cheese plates. But back then, yeah, it was completely different. Anything as far as better restaurants were all, French, heavy French, like in Chicago. It was kind of more, Le Francais and a couple predecessors that were downtown. So there wasn't kind of the breadth of cuisine that there is now in the US. And people didn't go out to eat that much. I eat 5 quarter pounders at McDonald's every day. So I was the exception that I went to restaurants frequently, but I don't know if we really call that actual food anymore.
Well, that's awesome. And then, with that being said, kind of bring us through your, early experiences of just like, what were you doing, and, how did you come to Chicago? When did you come to Chicago? I'm really excited to learn more about you. And yeah.
I came to Chicago in 1988. I was in finance. I spent my whole career in finance working with pension funds, so nothing to do with food. And at that point in time, I don't think I could really cook at all. I tried to cook as a small child, so I remember being 2 and I wanted to make cookies, and I kind of I figured out how to mix sugar and flour together, but it turns out that doesn't really make much of a cookie. Lime
Right.
Jello went no better with the quick version when I was 5 and I came home and nobody was there. And the quick version uses ice instead of cold water. Um, I read it wrong and assumed that it was just ice instead of water. And so it was just basically lime Jello mix stuck all over ice cubes. So uh, I couldn't make Kraft macaroni and cheese when I was 23. I couldn't boil a hot dog. I couldn't do anything. Uh, I had a roommate, and he said I can make spaghetti, and basically it was he sautéed some ground hamburger, some hamburger, threw in a jar of Prego and stirred it, and that was it.
Now, in terms of, being in the finance world, like you guys would go out for lunch, usually, out for dinner, uh, or, what was the scene like back then? You know how everybody now kind of,
Then, I mean, there were definitely kind of like, the three cocktail lunches or whatever. And, but I wouldn't say that I really went out that much. I mean, there were certainly some dinners. Uh, um, but, on mine was probably more the exception. In finance, there were probably a lot more people that went out to dinner. So, and in Chicago, it was, it was steakhouses. So there were a lot of good steakhouses and, not the same breadth. So, I mean, my culinary journey didn't really start until the first time I went to Charlie Trotter's was probably maybe 1990, 91, not that long after he opened.
can you describe that experience of like, now all the Michelin restaurants or fine dining restaurants, they sell tickets, right? Everything kind of
Right.
pre-decided beforehand. What were the experience of going to an establishment of that, statue back in the day? And was it hard to get in?
Yeah, it was not easy to get in. Actually, a lot of people in finance, especially, flew from New York just to go to Charlie Trotter's. They would kind of come up with a reason to be in Chicago, and mostly they just wanted to go to dinner there. So it was, truly a national restaurant. So you could get in, and not as hard as it was not easy to get in, but nothing like today because, it's not like you punched into open table or something like that. You had to call somebody, had to pick it up. You had to have a conversation. And I think the first time I went there, I think the vegetarian menu was $60, and the herbivore menu was like $70. And I don't know, 10, 12 courses, and I probably had 8 things I'd never had in my life before. And it was a great bargain because back then you couldn't even really get those foodstuffs to even make the stuff yourself for as cheap as you could get it there. And so really just it, kind of changed the way I thought about food. I bought, a one-day, stage at Charlie Trotter's like a year or so later as charity. And, but figured I didn't know enough about food to actually be able to go there and cook. And so I spent the next 20 years or so preparing to be able to have enough courage to use the stage.
So you had like a golden ticket that you were just sitting on.
I had this ticket, yeah, and it was early after we opened, so it didn't expire. Later on, they expire after a year or something like that.
That's pretty interesting, having that ability of just kind of sitting on this and really kind of thinking about it, because it seems like you've plotted some moves and put some things in action to kind of to get yourself ready for that moment.
Now, it was just fear, and it took 20 years, and the only reason that I used it is that I ended up using it 2 weeks before they closed.
Got it.
So, because it's like, well, I don't want to let it expire worthless, so I have to use it now.
Makes a lot of sense, but also I would imagine that Charlie Trotter only grew in popularity in the days, and pretty much by the time they were closing, they're pretty well known and established, around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I got to do a lot of stuff because everybody's saying, well, basically, we're going to be unemployed in a couple of weeks, so there's really nothing.
So very hands-on
really
stage.
Ah.
It's pretty cool, but kind of looking back and going back to that experience of like, how was Charlie Trotter's and what made it great and what made you, be so fearful of stepping in that kitchen? Like, what was the experience like?
You see my knife skills, so they're better now, but they're still not good. I don't know. I wasn't a cook. I didn't have any experience, and Charlie Trotter was Charlie Trotter, right? So, no one wants to do anything to embarrass themselves. So, but it was great because it essentially, I spent, a lot of my spare time reading about food, learning about food, trying to make different food. So, essentially, even if I hadn't gone there, it kind of got me on that journey to become much more of a food enthusiast.
Right. And kind of looking back, what were those, some of those tools that you kind of reached out to grab and like learn the knowledge? Where were those at?
I bought a lot of cookbooks.
Okay. What are your 3 favorite cookbooks?
3. Oh, that'd be tough. That's like, I don't know, Catholic person with 20 kids asking which is their 3 favorite kids, right? Depends on the day. Actually, and now I actually get a lot of stuff online. Kenji Alt is like the best recipe writer in the US, in my opinion.
That is
Kenji Lopez Alt.
That is the first one. What are the books about, and what's written?
I have his cookbook, and I think it's I'm trying to think it might be called Serious Eats. Serious Eats was a website, and I don't remember the name of the book, but it's a great book, and there's plenty of things out there where the recipes aren't really that well tested, and
yes,
a
lot of that.
So he used to be he was went to, I believe, MIT, who's a biology major doing research, and he started working in restaurants and ended up being the head recipe tester for what is it, America's Test Kitchen or whatever, the little guy from Vermont and the TV show. Do you know what this is?
No, I lost you there.
No, there's like a magazine that's been out for 1 million years, but it's like one where they actually say, well, what if we cook it at 140 and 160 and 200, and what if we change this? And so they'll do like 20 iterations of a recipe to figure out what works the best. And so he kind of takes that approach with everything. So
neat. Is there any recipes that you still pull out to this day from that book?
I use his recipe for risotto. It's a no-stir risotto. Which is awesome.
Finding those little time-saving methods there, Mark.
Yeah, it's like a nice foolproof risotto, so you don't just have to sit there and stir. So if you have a bunch of people over and everybody gathers in the kitchen, they're talking to the person, you're trying to cook for 12 people and have a conversation. So this kind of makes it more of a foolproof recipe. So that's one that I use a lot. I use a lot of his stuff. So like a hack for Shake Shack burger or whatever, but no one's been able to come up with a good hack for the Shake Shack pickles.
Shake Shack pickles, are they fried pickles? I'm not really a Shake Shack fan.
No, they're just dill pickles, but they make them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I've come across many different variations of dill pickle recipes, and they range a lot from chef to chef on how much sugar and how much salt vinegar ratios. And then at Royster we had like a 46 ingredient dill pickle recipe, a spicy dill pickle recipe. So that was fun. But yeah, I'm actually interested to like go to Shake Shack and try just a pickle now and just be like, okay.
No, but give you an idea of Kenji Alt's kind of like thoroughness. So when he decided to kind of try and recreate Shake Shack sauce, which David Chang actually created, he used a strainer to get all the little pieces of pickle out, and then weighed that to see how much pickle there was in the Shake Shack sauce.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty OCD.
Yeah, no, that's definitely that's like working a recipe backwards, right?
Exactly. So now I don't even really use that much. I guess that's really the difference. After you kind of go to culinary school, and eventually it hits you that you just open your refrigerator, you look and see what's in there, and then you look in the pantry, and then you figure out something to make with it.
Which is amazing, right?
Yeah, which I like Charlie Trotter. So the nice thing about Charlie Trotter is that he never served the same dish twice.
Okay.
10 different courses. I mean, I'm sure there were tones and there weren't like major changes sometimes, but
Right. No,
he would
he
always,
definitely kept it like hyper seasonal and always evolving. He was definitely, ahead of his time.
so, and now it's, completely different, not just in Chicago, but everywhere in the US as far as uh, the, uh, the places you can go and get a really, really good meal and a wide variety of cuisines.
And
So Vlad, favorite pizza? Which got a favorite Chicago pizza? Favorite overall pizza?
my favorite pizza as
Yeah.
Neapolitan style pizza. I really like the
Yes.
spot in Winnetka. They do an awesome pizza. Anything out of a wood burning oven
Yeah.
is fair game to me. Chicago style, I'd consider that a pie.
Yeah.
That's how I look
I
at
like them
it.
both. For Chicago style, I like Lefties, which is basically a guy that went in when Bert died and some other people bought it, and then he left and started Lefties. Maybe that's why he named it Lefties, because he left. And then he has thin crust and kind of the caramelized deep dish.
Got it. Have you been to Pequod's?
Mm-hmm. That's where Bert started, right? So Bert's had Pequod's and then sold it.
And is Bert's and just going back, see that like older gentleman that appeared in a lot of Chicago style, big beard guy, just trying to put a face to it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Basically, never cut his. I don't think he never cut his beard or hair after like 1972. So I think he passed on. I don't know, 3-4 years ago maybe. And then they basically took a year to try and recreate his pizza because he didn't really have like a regular written recipe that they could duplicate.
Right.
So it's like, reverse engineering a recipe with money on the table.
Right, because it definitely, there was a lot of hype around that restaurant and the vibe in that, but that's pretty interesting. But in terms of kind of moving on a some sort of timeline, but how did you, end up getting into culinary school, and then what effect has that had on your family? I know that, that kind of played a big role in what some of your family members are doing now.
It did. Well, definitely they all kind of ended up gradually becoming foodies somewhere along the way. So getting into culinary school isn't that hard, actually kind of like, sticking with it is tougher. But I did it after I retired. So certainly plenty of people said, oh, you should quit kind of like working with pension funds and just, open a restaurant or a food truck or whatever. And it's kind of like, being a chef is like an unbelievable amount of stamina, even, when you're young. And, at that point I was, mid 50s. So it was like, the idea of being on my feet for 18 hours a day wasn't really that appealing. So I took it more to be able to cook better for myself and for my family, as opposed to doing anything professionally with it after that. And so, and it did, my youngest daughter, Lindsay, was a pastry chef out in San Francisco. And is still, she's back out there now talking to kind of like a bunch of firms to do recipe testing and development and food development and everything, and knows way more about food than I do. So she's kind of obsessed with making Burmese tofu.
Burmese tofu. Now I
Burmese
know.
tofu.
Oh, okay. Explain that to me. I'm pretty interested.
You make it
now.
out of different things. It's not really tofu. It just looks like tofu and has a similar texture to tofu. But the most common one is you make flour out of split peas, like dried split peas, and you make that as a flour and then use that to make, you kind of refrigerate it and brick it or whatever after it's, after, all the other ingredients are put in and it's set. So when you kind of, saute it and cut it up, it looks like, regular kind of firm tofu. And it's really good.
I've seen, well, yeah, to avoid the soybeans, right? Because soybeans are horrible for us.
So you can make it with garbanzo beans. You can make it with split peas. You can make it with lots of different ingredients. So.
And is this still like a firm tofu, or is this like a silken tofu?
No, it's a firm.
It's a firm tofu. So it's meant for like grilling and
Yeah.
breading and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. And she just uses like the natural starches of the garbanzo beans, or is there like, some?
That's some of it. I can't remember.
I was just seeing
I've
this.
never actually made it, so I don't know.
Yeah, so out of all things, I was watching T-Pain's School of Business or whatever, and they were doing a really cool thing about the revolution of food, where it's going. And there's this company that's printing or not printing, developing chicken in a lab and whatnot. But their first product was an egg replacement, and it's called Just Egg, and it's pretty much
Yeah, she talked to them.
So that's really cool. But what they did is they found out that mung beans, when they're like pureed and you heat them up, they kind of solidify like eggs. And literally, that's they weren't genetically making mung beans, but they just figured out a cool skew. And it's always interesting when an outsider walks into an industry and can make such a revolutionary breakthrough. That I would say, I never thought about it like that, but because he was an outsider kind of looking into this with different, mindset and different set of eyes, he was able to kind of engineer this product. And, now it's a pretty successful product. That's really cool that I thought.
There's an amazing number of food startups, in that space, kind of like, especially in San Francisco. So not just Impossible Burger and places like that, but there's probably 20 or 30 firms that are pretty far down the line as far as the things that they're making.
Right. Now, what's your opinion on that? Should we be, tinkering with our food like that, or should we just go back to, living on the farm and kind of that lifestyle?
I think you can go either way. I mean, I think that, I had like this health issue, and even though they haven't really figured out the cause, they figured, well, you should eat less fat and have one alcoholic beverage a day, even though we don't think it really is going to matter, just as a precautionary thing for a while. So I think I think earlier today I had my alcoholic beverage for like February 1st, 2024. So way ahead of schedule.
Got it.
But I think I like Impossible Burgers. I think that medium rare Impossible Burger with a slice of cheese doesn't really make it vegetarian or anything, but I think they taste good.
Right. I think if the texture, right?
Yeah.
That's the hardest part to nail, and the juiciness. But you're pretty much, what is the texture of beef? If things are seasoned well, I think you can still, develop a good taste. Now, all the stuff that I've tried, I didn't really enjoy, but maybe I've just had it at a, bad spot or just misused
Well,
it.
they sell Impossible Burgers at the grocery store. You can get them.
Might have to give that a go.
Yeah. So they're better than the restaurants, better than, like having an Impossible Burger, Whopper at Burger King, or places where they go, well, we have Impossible Burger, but, we cook everything medium well. It's like, it's not meat.
Right.
I think you can serve it medium rare. I think it's okay.
Can you serve it raw though? Or does it advise to?
I've never
cook
had
on
a
the pack?
Impossible Burger tartare. So
Right. That's, I'm just interested now thinking about
but
that.
I use vegetables. Can you eat vegetables raw? So I think
Right.
it's fine.
I would assume, Daniel Hum has a famous carrot tartare dish. So
Yeah.
So you see what, chefs can really do. And it is really cool the way they're taking this, things into the future. I'm definitely down with a couple things, and then I think some things are a little far-fetched in what I think would be sustainable. But there's a lot of more, knowledge now in the market from the consumer, and, the across the entire board, from the farms to the waters to the fisheries, to the restaurants. Everybody's being a little bit more knowledgeable, I think.
Well, that's a
nowadays.
much higher bar. I mean, I think you used to have kind of plant-based companies there were people that didn't eat meat, and they go, oh my God, this tastes like a burger. And it's kind of like, well, you don't actually eat meat. So, and then other people would say, no, it looks like a burger, but it doesn't taste like a burger. And now, there's a much wider range of tastes and palates of people that are taste testing these things, so that when they're done right, like the mung bean egg and stuff like that, then you really can't tell.
Yep. And that's pretty cool that we, even that we have that ability to do that nowadays. Definitely very expensive, from what I've heard, in terms of like, the amount of funds that are going into these companies. But kind of moving aside from that,
Okay.
and kind of going back to like the Charlie Trotter era and then that finishing, what were some of the best restaurant dining experience that you've had? And what were some of the best, explorations? Because I know you've done quite a bit of traveling.
Let's see. Favorite restaurant in Paris is Auguste.
And
Spelled
why?
like August with an E on the
Auguste.
end of it.
Auguste. Describe it to me. Take me to Paris. I've never been.
It's across from Musée de Rodin, where there's lots of Rodin statues and everything, and it's just like a lot of attention to detail. So you can have a soup, you can have a pasta dish, and everything's perfectly balanced and everything's perfectly cooked. So it's not overcooked pasta, undercooked pasta, and it's not improperly seasoned. And portions in Paris don't tend to be, Americanized, so they're not big. But at the end of the day, you have a lunch, you have a 3-course lunch, and for 25, 35 euros, and you don't really eat another meal the rest of the day. You might have like a baguette or a little bit of cheese or something, but that's really kind of enough to make you feel. In fact, my wife and I would go over there. We really only have like a restaurant meal like every other day because it's just a lot of food.
Right.
It's just very sating. I don't know. Italy, Lake Como, Maritas is like this little tiny restaurant that has really good wine prices and does a great job with fish. And you can't talk about fish without talking about Le Bernadine.
Le
Which
Bernadine.
has what's it called? The harvest lunch. It's walk-in, and you go there early. And I don't know what the price is now. I think the last time I was there a few years ago might have been $55 for lunch.
I think that
But,
somewhere around there.
Without all the hassle of trying to get a reservation 2 months in advance.
And that's in the lounge, right? That's not in the.
Mm-hmm. That's in the lounge.
And what's the lounge like?
It's a lot of silverware.
A lot of silverware.
It's just an incredible amount of silverware. I mean, I kind of know where the forks go and where the knives go and the spoons go, on a regular thing. And you get out there and then, they start bringing out stuff that you're not used to seasoning. So it's kind of like, here's a special little thing for this dish or whatever. And
it's really cool. Now, since I know you've talked about this before, and when we've went to culinary school together, but going to that harvest lunch, have you ever went for the full experience at Le Bernardin?
Yeah.
And
yeah, my oldest daughter and I went.
And did you get to try that like that tuna carpaccio dish? That's like their most. So what is that? Describe that to me, because I've wanted to eat that for so long now. I've seen it in so many different segments of different cooking shows and food shows and whatnot.
You know what? It's been a long time. I'm not even sure I remember, but I had it. I probably remember there's a salmon rillette thing that he did that's actually pretty incredible. But
yes, I remember you talking about that as well.
I don't know. But actually Tokyo is like a really great food city.
Okay, so describe the Tokyo. Have you been to the fish market? Have you got to?
Oh yeah, the old
that?
one. They moved it now. The Tsukiji Fish Market, and there's like a conveyor sushi place that's there, and which are pretty commonplace, in London and other places now, and you just kind of, here's tuna belly and stuff like that or whatever. And you end up and you have this giant stack of plates.
Right. Cause they must be so
The
fresh
four
and
of us
so
went
good.
there and, sushi is one of those things that doesn't actually fill you up. You can just eat it forever. And so we had a stack of, I don't know, 30,
And
40 plates.
now we're talking about traditional, just like rice and fish, right?
Yes.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely eat a bunch of those.
You see the salmon go by and you go, a salmon. It's like, and then after a while you go, I'm kind of hungry. I'll have a salmon. and it's like, wow, this is amazing. And scallop sushi. So, which you don't really see that much here because it's hard to have it fresh enough to really serve it as sushi.
Right. And now kind of getting on the scallop subject, but having that culinary background, now you know that the best scallops are dry pack scallops, right? So it's almost like sets your standards even higher of what you would allow yourself to buy at the grocery store. Or yes or no? Would you agree with me there?
Oh, definitely. There's some really good dry stuff. Like in San Francisco, there's a place called Water to Table that really kind of boomed, selling stuff directly to the public after COVID because you weren't selling as much stuff to restaurants anymore. That's probably the second freshest scallop I've ever had was there. But in Paris, when you buy them, they're on the shelf.
And they're still alive.
They're still alive. Right. So that's even better than dry pack.
That is better than dry pack. I've actually personally never had the pleasure of cleaning the own scallops, but
well, someday they might let us go to France again.
Right, one of these days. But I think it's really hard for especially being in the Midwest to get the price you're gonna pay for divers scallops in the shell are gonna be extremely expensive, and the weight that you're inquiring too is extremely expensive. Yeah,
I mean, dry pack scallops alone are kind of definitely moved up a lot in price over the last 10 to 15 years.
They have.
You still pay like $7 a pound.
I love scallops, like a good sear brown, just butter basted, garlic, thyme, and everything. But I know like my wife doesn't care for it at all. She's like, tastes like nothing. So
well, more for you.
There's always more for me, but we're never ordering scallops at a menu because I can't share that with her. So I do love scallops, but kind of getting off the subject of scallops, and you kind of mentioned COVID. How's your COVID experience been? And how has that affected you and what you've been doing to kind of stay upbeat, stay active, and stay positive?
I'm not that social, so this is like a dream, come true.
I mean,
so
you were very social and loud in culinary school.
Yeah, but I had to be there. So if I'm dropped into something, then I try to have a good time, but I don't go out of my way to kind of seek it. So
right, this definitely did fall in your lap.
Yeah, all the stuffy charity things that you kind of say, do I really want to go to this? And now it's like, well, COVID, sorry, can't go. Although ironically, where, basically a lot of people weren't working, I actually, took a part-time job about a year ago to be a chief investment officer for this West Coast firm. So, go figure, it's COVID and I actually start working.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, what does that entail? I know, the day traders and all that is all the hype, the GameStops and the Wall Street bets on Reddit and all that.
Yeah, this is the other end. This is the other end. So
this is the hedge funds end.
This is just I create models to screen managers and you diversify and mostly you're just trying to kind of smooth out the risk so as opposed to just buying one hot little stock, you might actually have 15 different managers that complement each other so that you have this kind of smooth return path. But I telecommute. I've never been there. I'll never really end up going there, but it's I ran out of I never really done home maintenance to any degree before. It was not very mechanical, and I got bored enough that I started fixing all the stuff around here. And when I ran out of stuff to do, then I figured I should find something else to do. So it ended up, an old colleague called me and he had joined this company and he lured me and another person out of retirement to do research for them.
And that's in of itself is just really inspiring and motivates me knowing you as a person. You're always so driven, always doing so many things. And it's just incredible to see, you know. I've definitely looked up to you for many different reasons.
It's because I'm taller. That's all. I mean,
You are
math.
taller. I just love, you know, I just love your character, really. Just all the things that make Mark. I really do enjoy, and you know, always cooking in your presence was fun, and we always had a blast. And you're always very critical and you know, thought out. You were very good at planning, and that was really my downfall, is planning.
Yeah. My downfall was really more the execution, the actual doing the stuff. And
Right. I never had a problem with that. I'll show up, you know, I'm the 20 minutes late guy, but everything will be okay.
Yeah. I was always better at figuring out what could go wrong and figuring out how to prevent it than I was to actually keep something going wrong in the moment.
Yeah, and the espressos were really good that we got to make for ourselves.
Yeah.
That was definitely a great perk of culinary school.
Exactly.
What kind of
I need a flat top. I don't have a flat. I have to get a flat top. So
I actually just bought my parents a flat top grill, so it's a grill and a flat top. Pretty cool.
You flip it, or is it another thing that you put on?
It's
top?
like a 32-inch, like a 2-burner grill and a like a portable griddle, whatever type of thing. It's not really portable because the griddle part of it is cast iron, and it's super heavy. But back in my poke days, we were cooking out of his dad's kitchen at 900 Michigan Avenue, and they would make these breakfast sandwiches on the griddle. And you know, when you spread the omelet and you like fold it in and put the cheese and stack it between either, you know, or English muffin or a croissant, it's like the best thing ever because it's got so many layers, and it's got that melty cheese. So I was literally making that for breakfast every day for everybody, and like incorporating different ingredients, almost like making like a crepe on a griddle, but just filling it with different things.
Very cool.
So I would see you having a lot of fun with a griddle at home, because you know, those 2-burner griddles or those portable griddles, they don't really hold the juices in, don't give you a lot of space.
No, I have a nice stove, and actually but the one that I got, I have a piano on the one end. If you don't remember, you know what a piano is, right?
Yes, I know.
So they didn't.
I know, but if you want to explain to all our viewers who might have missed that, but what does the piano refer to in culinary terms?
It's basically think of it as a big slab of cast iron, and in the middle is a burner, and but it covers the space of a couple of burners. And if you want something hot, you put it in the center, and if you want to simmer it, you kind of put it over on the edge. So the further away you get from the center of the piano, which doesn't really look like a piano, it's just a flat slab of thing with a circle in it. So
right,
I couldn't tell you exactly why it's called a piano.
Right, just fancy things. And do you remember at Charlie Trotter's the French tops? They only had I think they only had like 2 or 4 French tops in that whole place.
There was.
I actually
there were a lot of people in a very small space. Let's put it that way.
But it was really really cool. I got to do a walkthrough with Dylan Trotter, you know, years after the place closed. But just the amount of like detail, having like stainless steel glass see-through cabinets, you know, above you, and having, you know, like three French tops. Those French tops looks like they were used so much. Like I've only got to see, you know, the nice shiny new French tops. I've never seen the old ones, but it's incredible, you know, how much wear it had on it. I could only imagine. But yeah, they only had the kitchen is tiny.
Yep, it was. I think I was prepping vegetables on a cutting board, like over a utility sink, because there was no other place to stand. So anytime anybody needed to use a sink, I had to lift up the cutting board, and then they would use the sink, and I would put my cutting board back down. So
That
sounds
must have
pretty
been of
sanitary.
experience there, especially as an outsider. Like this is okay, guys. You sure I can?
Yeah, are we allowed to do this? Yeah.
But yeah, no, the French top, cooking on those type of things, definitely different from home cooking. What are your kind of favorite spots now that you're down in Arizona, right?
El Charro has a happy hour 2 to 6 Tuesday through Sunday. And so I think they have like I don't know, a dozen different margaritas for $2 off, and then they have really good food. The place has been there since 1922, I think.
1922.
Yeah. So actually, my grandfather is buried in Tucson. He went out in like 1929 and died of tuberculosis. But I think he had tuberculosis before he went there. But so El Charro was there, but my grandmother, I never saw her eat Mexican food, so I don't think they went to El Charro. So they missed out.
So is it very like Latin focused or Latin?
60 miles from the border, so.
Right. But is the scene thriving? Do you see momentum now? Or restaurants opening back up? Are things what are the projections looking like? Are we?
I don't know. To be honest, I mean, I went to Tucson one time a couple years ago at a kind of a grand tour of Arizona, and we had some friends that had moved to Tucson, and we liked it. And and I will say, kind of like, this is like our house here in Illinois. It was kind of like a nice COVID house, so there were plenty of space to work and do stuff and have privacy, and so it wasn't like being cooped up in a little 400-foot apartment or something and driving yourself nuts. But we went out there twice for a couple 3-day trips and to look at houses, and ended up buying this one. So basically, I spent a grand total of 8 days in Tucson until this month when we were out there for 18 days. And mostly I was doing, deferred home maintenance left by the previous owner. But
right. Okay, I got it. So we'll come back to that question.
We went to Pizzeria Bianca in my favorite pizza place in the U.S.
Pizzeria Bianca.
Phoenix.
And they got a pizza oven?
Neapolitan style pizza. He makes and smokes his own mozzarella.
Interesting.
It's really good.
Is it like an outdoor smoker or?
I think he has a wood burning grill, so I think he basically just puts it in the cool part of the wood burning oven in order to smoke the cheese.
It's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, that is like my new dream now. I want to get a trailer with a pizza oven in it and just go around town. There's a lot of miles to tread in the United States. And I really hope things are going to pick back up. I know, just like me, I kind of switched careers. I think we lost, a lot of potential, Charlie Trotters and so to speak, those type of people that could have ended up bringing something very interesting to the industry that just couldn't have continued that path.
I think there'll be a lot of talent that'll still be doing stuff in the food industries. It might not necessarily be as many of them in regular brick and mortar sit down restaurants. And now it's kind of going through that. You have that, the whole battle is kind of like, well, this is what space costs. And it's kind of like, well, I'm either going to have to charge more for food or have less space. And so you have this kind of whole battle between what's going to happen to rents, because with restaurants closing, there's less demand for rent. So it's like if you get a place and you have lower rent, then that tends to be a good thing. But you have to still, figure out, how many covers can you get, and what type of, are they takeout covers or indoor covers, and and there's been a lot of change. I mean, now you go to the liquor store and they have, it's like regular takeout cocktails now, right? Cocktails in a can.
Yeah, all those hard seltzers have been popping off.
So I think that the food industry will just be less restaurant centric, but I think that it'll actually play a more important role than it did in the previous 10 years.
Right. So you're kind of saying that we're gonna the food we're buying from grocery stores and convenience stores is gonna improve from what you see is happening.
Yeah. Or you'll have more people going to open air markets than go now. So
and kind of
I
going
went to one
back,
there. I had some amazing paper thin tortillas. You could they were like window pane. You could see through them. They were amazing.
did you grab a dozen?
I did.
Yeah, I mean, I would grab. I love. We have here at Lincoln Park, the farmers market. That was what last time I was there, probably more than a year ago. But they have some awesome stuff, and they bring in a lot of cool stuff that you can't buy in the grocery store. And it's healthy and it's supporting those farmers directly. So definitely there's going to be a change in, that. And a lot, obviously, like you see, D'Artagnan is now, has much bigger sales in terms of direct to consumer. You start seeing that, playing a role as well. Now people know they want, this product and they can get it in their home.
Well, I think that and it already exists at the farmers markets, but I think there'll be more and more kind of like open air markets where, you have one product kind of food companies and say, hey, I make tortillas, or, I roast chilies, or, I do whatever. And then you'll have people and they'll go there and they'll get kind of like, so direct from farmer, or also kind of like direct to producer as far as somebody making really good food. And so I think there'll be more of that. And I think people, slow down enough. They go, in some ways, you can view it as a lost year, or you can view it as, when does anybody have enough time to really stop and think? But it's like we take away sports, we take away restaurants, we take away all these things. And all of a sudden it's just you, and you have to figure out, well, what did I used to do with all my time? And do I want to do that anymore? Or do I want to do something else?
I definitely agree with that.
So it's kind of like a forced mass meditation globally.
If you attended, I think, because a lot of people, didn't really use that time to really reflect and look back and do that. And some people, weren't given the chance. It really depends on what your circumstances were. But definitely for me, it was, a very productive year in terms of what I've learned. And I think 2021 is going to be a great year to apply everything that we've kind of pivoted and adjusted to and have learned and kind of intaken. But yeah, I'm super happy to have you on the pod. As we kind of wrap things up, we have, one final question that we like to ask, but I have a couple more. Let's say,
Okay.
what's your we kind of talked about food and that, but I did see, earlier you had that beautiful stack of Modernist cookbooks. Now I am interested, have you cooked a recipe out of any of those books yet?
I bought them when they first came out. Actually, the binding on my first one cracked, so I've kind of like tried to be pretty careful with them. So,
and did it get cracked from the amount of usages the books were getting?
No, I cracked the first time I opened it.
Okay, got it.
I kind of read cookbooks and stuff like novels more than just make stuff, especially kind of back then. It was really more, don't you do that? If you have a cookbook, you just sit there and you just kind of read the whole thing, and you kind of like imagine which stuff you'd like to make, or how you'd change this recipe and that recipe. And by the time you're done, you've come up with something, but it
It's not
might
what
be completely
right.
independent of what you read.
it's definitely a great way to look into inspirations. But with those, the modernist cookbooks that you have there, I mean, not only are they a hefty penny, but the artwork and the photography and the explanations on them is just beyond this world. But again, those recipes are also very, very, intricate and step by step, multiple steps, multiple hours to achieve something as beautiful as we see in those books. So I'm just very interested because I've read them, but I've just, you're never reading them and go, okay, I have this, I have this, I have this. Oh yeah, I can make this, not a problem. It's always like, okay, I have to order half of these dry ingredients off Amazon, and then hopefully these other ingredients are going to be at the 7 other stores I'm going to have to drive through.
I don't know if I've ever made anything out of it. If I had, it's been a while. It's been a long time. So, but I've read a lot of this stuff. I learned a lot from reading it. But the other one from Kenji Alt is the creamy salsa verde enchiladas.
Creamy salsa verde enchiladas.
It's green. It's a green chicken enchilada.
And is there any cream in there, or is it just like creamy because
there's some sour cream in there?
Got it. That makes sense. I've actually never cooked enchiladas.
I hadn't either before that. It was like, I'd go to places and I'd have enchiladas, or somebody's house and they would make enchiladas, and they were always the red enchiladas, and they were good, but like it's not like, oh, I have to go home and make this. And I actually like tomatillos a lot, so it's kind of like this go-to. I probably make that dish every few weeks.
Now, do you like cook the chicken, then shred it, and stuff it inside, and then pour the sauce and bake it?
Yeah, and I actually cheat. There's things that he does with uses whatever. I can't stand the sticks. The
the toothpicks or whatever, just to hold them in, right?
No, the mixer.
Oh, you use the mixer?
The stick mixer. He has you do stuff in there, and then you end up kind of mixing it in the pot. And so I don't do it that way. I just kind of throw a lot of the stuff in the food processor, and then and cook the chicken separately, and then shred it and mix it all together. But
got it.
No, it's a great recipe.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to try that. Yeah, and as we,
I'll send you the link. Please do.
I'm actually very interested. I just picked up Jeremiah Tower recommended Simple French Cooking or Food, I believe. Mm-hmm. Don't quote me on that, but great book, and just really,
Yeah, he started out at Chez Panisse, right?
Yes, he did.
The right guy?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. We recently had him on the podcast as well, and that was one of the books he recommended. So I'm always interested and always on the lookout for new books. And especially, me being not the knowledge seeker, but just learning, things of the past to understand why we are where we are now in terms of cooking. I always like looking at, older cookbooks and older generations' thoughts, and kind of, learn my foundations before I can, make big switches in terms of, what I'm cooking and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones out. There's like LaRousse and some of the other stuff, the classics, and they tend to have a ton of recipes in there because all the recipes are like 6 lines. They're not really, they're really made for somebody who already knows how to kind of make the stuff. And they go, oh, here you go. Here's this chicken recipe, and it's this and this and this, and cut this, cook this, and then that's it. You're done. So it's not this kind of excruciating detail on.
Right. Right. With, nowadays with the recipes, you have to be very, step by step. Then they just kind of give you, this is what's in it. This how, I got there, and figure out there's a lot of things that could be overlooked or miscommunicated with those type of recipes that we don't have nowadays.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I was kind of talking about old cookbooks. I dove deep into 16, 17, 1800s cookbooks, and they're like, they're almost like an alinea recipe. There's make this sauce and this sauce, and then take a fourth of this sauce and this sauce, incorporate it, reduce it, and
put it in a bladder and
yeah. I mean, I was just like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, but they were cooking, for royals, and I'm not sure how the whole farm to table worked back then, because they didn't really describe that. But I'm assuming they used everything within a
I think it was just called eating.
Very close radius. Yeah, I mean they're definitely eating, but some of these recipes definitely intimidated me, and I did not expect that. So I was pretty
I
interested.
never looked at any that old.
Yeah, and there's some online, and obviously the spelling, and you kind of have to fill in the blanks of most of the stuff that you're reading and whatnot. But yeah, I definitely found that very cool in terms of how complex the food was. And, with it being complex, it's not really complex. You're making a stock, but it's going to take, 24 hours, and then you're making another stock. And that was really, they really knew how to extract flavor and stretch food back then. Where now, we're trying to compact flavor and make it explosive.
So yeah, being a truffle boy, the first cookbook I ever bought was cooked for this restaurant called Petite Marmite, where before they had stars and everything else, but kind of like in Palm Beach, great French restaurant, and actually Thomas Keller's brother. So Thomas Keller kind of grew up down there, and his mom ran the kitchen for whatever the Palm Beach, country club or yacht club or whatever. And his older brother actually was like the sous chef for this restaurant.
Really? I didn't know.
Until about a year. I think he left about a year or two before I went there. But the recipes kind of reflect kind of the availability of foodstuffs now versus then. So some of the recipes, they'd say 3 large black truffles, right? So they assume 3 large black truffles and a Premier Cru white Burgundy wine or whatever or something like that. You should just be able to just get without any problem.
Right.
And then they'd say, well, prosciutto, and they go, well, if you can't really get a hold of prosciutto, just use like boiled ham or something, and or they'd say, well, use this French mustard. They'd say, oh, use Dijon mustard or whatever, like one teaspoon of Dijon mustard for the salad dressing. They go, well, if they don't sell Dijon mustard where you live, just use yellow mustard. So, and it really was an issue in a lot of places. It's like you couldn't really get Dijon mustard, you couldn't really get prosciutto, but But evidently, you're supposed to be able to get, truffles at the drop of a hat.
Right. I couldn't even imagine sourcing, those delicacies back then, and how hard that must have been. But I'm truly glad to be living in an era where I could probably order truffles on Amazon and get it here to my house, and things like that, like prosciutto di Parma and Parmigiano Reggiano and the real stuff, and that's definitely been more in abundance in terms of availability and reach that we've had. Do you, what are those, my favorite 3 things are truffles, foie gras, and caviar. What are your favorite 3 food delicacies?
My 3 favorite food delicacies? I like eggs. It's not really a delicacy, but I love eggs.
Eggs, they're definitely, I feel like they are a delicacy, right? Because a perfectly cooked egg is sometimes simple but amazing. I mean, how do you like your, if we're talking about eggs, poached eggs, okay. Okay, I see.
Always poached.
Got it.
Occasionally a fried egg. It depends on whatever I'm, making with it. But
so
I love truffles. So
okay, yeah, eggs and truffles for breakfast. I mean, can't go wrong there.
Eggs and truffles.
For breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Yes. Now with the eggs, since you like poaching them so much, and I love picking people's brains, vinegar always is a must.
A little bit. I put a little vinegar in it. It makes it a little easier to set.
Do you ever skip the vinegar though, and it like comes out perfectly fine, or or is there like is there like I have to put vinegar? In terms of you, like your personal preference, because
I like I like the I like the taste of the vinegar with it. I'm used to it's just kind of a familiar taste. So um, I'm sure it would be fine without it, but it's kind of like what you're used to. So I mean, there's stuff that probably when you were a kid that you ate and you go, wow, this is not good food, but you kind of grew up eating it, so you can have this food memory connecting with I don't know, Girl Scout cookies or whatever, something that that you would say, would I really eat this if I'd never eaten it as a child? And the answer would probably be no. But
right,
the
it's like
fact that
nostalgia,
yeah,
childhood memories. Yeah, definitely. Food definitely has a big impact, on those memories. And when you come across something that's familiar, it definitely sticks and probably releases some dopamine in your brain, and you're a little bit happier and enjoying that
probably.
a little bit better. But yeah, I'm just
So
always,
I don't know. Truffles has got to
interested.
be on any list. So
Okay, but with truffles, now I always get this question: white truffles or black truffles?
white, but they're both good.
They're both good, but they're yet so different, right?
Yeah,
Just
depends on what you're having them with. So I probably prefer white truffles with pasta and black truffles with risotto. But
oh,
when
I
you live
agree with
here,
that.
it's for the most part, it's whatever you can get.
True, true.
Um, I, I've been to Paris for a couple of years now, but I always bring back a lot of truffle paste. So
And those are really good and phenomenal in flavor, and they preserve
yeah,
really well.
and cheap. They're like usually two or like $3. You can
Right,
go to
because
any
there's
grocery store. It'd be like if you went to the Piggly Wiggly and they had truffles, truffle paste. Here's truffle paste next to some ordinary ingredient, and it's like, oh, here's truffle paste for $2.50.
yep. And there's
You
definitely
don't have to clean the shelf out.
by the
It's like,
time
oh
it
my
yeah.
God, this must be an error. And then you realize it's just over there. It's not, it's just a food.
Yeah, I mean it's in their culture, right? It's like almost having, like mac and cheese here. There's just something that widely acceptable and becomes a part of their, food habitat. Um and people are growing truffles in Oregon now, and I'm very interested to
Right.
see where that's going to be in 5-10 years once those flavors start developing, right? Because with the younger trees you don't have much flavor development, but you get tubers. So I'd be pretty interested to see if we can get, Oregon to a scale of truffles that is, like a Petrosian caviar status.
Yeah. So yeah, foie gras used to probably be on my list, but now that I'm not supposed to have as much fat, then it probably shouldn't be on my list anymore. So
So taking off the foie gras.
taking off the foie gras.
No more
So
animal fat for you, Mark.
I can still have it. I just can't have
A nice
I
two
can't
ounce
have a lot of
dose.
it.
Just
You know,
you still
especially when they thought I had pancreatic cancer.
ooh,
But it turned out it was just pancreatitis, and they said you should probably lay off the fat.
got it. Well,
So I don't know. I eat pretty simple food. So
do you so earlier before we started this pod you were kind of saying takeouts here forever. I mean, are you, do you fall into that habit, or do you see yourself cooking for yourself more? And obviously
I mean, I usually kind of cook for myself most of the time. So there's certain things that are just, deep dish pizza is kind of a pain in the ass to make a little bit. And Italian beef is I made some Italian beef. I'm going to use like prime ribeye to make it. It was amazing, but it was like a lot of work
right.
for a sandwich. So
Yeah,
so
I mean,
nothing.
that's definitely why restaurants will always exist, right? Is because those
Yeah, I mean,
you're not gonna make
there are
French
places
fries
that
at
we order
home.
from around here that like local places that you kind of want to, keep
Support.
them in business and kind of order some stuff. So that are good, but there's definitely been, um, places that really have adapted well to it and have figured out how to create interesting menus and draw people in, um, that have done, kind of a good job with it all. So, and then there's others that, um, it's been tougher. And it's kind of like all the things that were important before in a restaurant. It's like, oh, look, I've got like, I can seat 100 people. And now
Right.
you have this other little restaurant that could seat 12 people, but they have this great outdoor space. And, the other one, has a natural advantage, with the outdoor space now. So it just kind of changed what real estate's more for restaurants going forward. Might be different than what it's been in the past.
Right, and that's pretty interesting. But definitely, I think the patio season was able to, float some more cash into the restaurants that otherwise would have had to, permanently shut down. And obviously, winter wasn't the best for restaurant season when it should be, when everybody's kind of trying to stay inside warm. This was like the opposite this year. So kind of seeing, patios open back up and, seeing a little bit of indoor dining opening back up, it is nice. And it's nice to hear, that the chefs are, hungry to show what, the consumer's been missing all this time and letting them do that, in a safe manner. I think that's going to be very crucial for where we're going to be in a year from now.
It'll definitely be an interesting year. So
That will be. So, Mark, our final question before we let you go for this evening is why 86? Do you have any idea of why in the culinary world we use 86? And do you have any stories about how it first came into your life?
no, I have no idea. You're the one that, started the restaurant business when they were 5. So I figured that.
Well, this is the question we ask all chefs, and we've got a wide range of answers. So I was just really interested. Maybe you heard of it, or maybe 86 was used for other reasons back in the day. But I know you did. In culinary school, we did use 86, and that kind of came into your life. But yeah, I guess you don't know the answer. But we've gotten.
I don't. I have no clue.
Which is great. That's the phenomenon in why 86, right? It just kind of appears in your life and it never leaves, and you know what it stands for. So we're kind of trying to get to the root of where that all started and how far along it did. And a lot of people have, quite funny stories about it, and how it like stumbled into their life. So we've gotten, quite a few mixed messages of, people saying, back in the day, it was like a military term where they would take you 8 miles out, 6 feet under. So you like don't say 86. And other people referenced it to a couple other things. But they also had a couple great stories. So that will wrap up our podcast for the evening. I want to thank Mark Vorhees for coming on the pod and sharing his experience in the food world. And as always, it was an amazing pod. I really enjoyed learning a lot more about you. And yeah, I had a lot of fun. I hope you did as well.
Thanks for having me. And, boy, you're available at the last minute. The bar drops a lot lower. So, all you Vlad late night chefs fans, you could be on the clock.
Yes, they can be on the clock. But Mark, honestly, true pleasure having you on the pod. I know you're cooking all the time. Are you still posting on the gram every time you cook dinner, or is that more of a Facebook thing?
I only kind of post stuff when I make something different, and I haven't made stuff different lately. So, kind of been eating egg white frittatas for breakfast with, hatch chilies and potatoes, and so you eat the same thing every day for like a month. You can only post it one time.
Right.
So
otherwise,
I have not been posting much. There's probably a couple things that I could have posted, but I don't know, work intervenes,
Of
find another
course.
house intervenes.
Life itself, right? We just keep moving.
So I haven't been as good about
No, but
keeping up on any of that stuff.
I love when you post all this stuff, and I love staying in touch with all my culinary peeps, especially people that make a big impact in my life. So I just want to say that you definitely had quite a big impact in my life, especially going through culinary school and having kind of an older mentor friend that's I would say has had a successful and is successful life. There's a lot to look up there. So I really enjoyed that, and I enjoy how willing you are to talk to me and tell me a lot of things, and I really enjoy our friendship, and I hope our viewers enjoyed likewise. As always, to everybody tuning in, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe for all our newest content. Thank you guys
And
so much.
Great job with the Late Night Chef podcast, and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Mark. You have a wonderful evening.
You too.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
See you, Vlad.
Bye-bye.